The restaurant was softly lit, with warm yellow lights casting a gentle glow over the polished wooden tables. It was the kind of place that felt welcoming the moment someone stepped inside, the faint sound of conversation blending with the quiet hum of a soft piano playing in the corner. Patrons moved slowly, savoring their meals, sipping wine, and sharing small smiles across the table. Servers moved efficiently, balancing trays with practiced ease, their movements almost like a dance in the quiet space. One waitress, in particular, moved through the room with a quiet confidence that came from years of experience. She had worked in this restaurant for several years, and while the nights were long and the work often tiring, she enjoyed the rhythm of it. She liked the way people would relax when she delivered their meals, how a smile or a kind word could brighten someone's evening. She took pride in her work, and though most nights were routine, she always kept an eye out for moments that might make the evening memorable. This particular evening seemed like any other at first. The restaurant was busy but not crowded, a comfortable mix of couples enjoying dinner, small groups chatting quietly, and a few regulars who always sat at the same table near the back. The soft piano music floated across the room, a gentle melody that made the atmosphere feel almost magical. The waitress moved from table to table, taking orders, refilling glasses, and offering a friendly word or two. She had learned to read the subtle cues of the patrons, when someone wanted conversation and when they wanted to be left alone. It was a skill she had developed over time, and it made her job easier and more enjoyable. Near the front of the restaurant, a man caught her attention. He was well-dressed, clearly someone who was used to attention, with a confident air that made him stand out without trying too hard. He was dining with a small group of friends, laughing quietly and talking with a certain ease that suggested he was comfortable in almost any setting. He noticed her as she approached, and there was a spark of curiosity in his eyes, the kind that made her pause for a moment, wondering what he might be thinking. He called her over with a polite wave, and she approached with a practiced smile. "Good evening," she said, her voice warm and steady. "Can I get you anything else?" He smiled back, a mix of amusement and interest in his expression. "Actually, I was just watching you work," he said, his tone friendly but playful. "You move through this room like you own it. I have to say, that's impressive." The waitress felt a small flush of pride at his words. Compliments weren't uncommon, but there was something in the way he said it that made her stand a little taller, like he had genuinely noticed her skill and poise. "Thank you," she replied. "I try to make sure everyone has a good experience." He nodded appreciatively, then leaned back in his chair, his eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. "I like people who can take on a challenge," he said. "I wonder if you'd be willing to do something a little unexpected tonight." She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Unexpected? What do you mean?" He glanced toward the piano in the corner of the room, the sleek black instrument sitting under the soft lights, almost like it was waiting for someone. "I see that piano over there," he said. "How about a little challenge? Just a small dare, really. I'd love to hear you play a song." The waitress blinked, taken aback. She hadn't expected that. Playing the piano wasn't something she did for work. It was a personal passion she rarely shared in public. She had learned to play as a child and had spent countless hours practicing. But in her day-to-day life, few people knew about her talent. The thought of performing in front of a room full of strangers was both exciting and nerve-wracking. She hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was it appropriate? Would she embarrass herself? And yet, there was a spark of excitement she couldn't ignore. The idea of stepping out of her comfort zone, even for a few minutes, had a thrill that was hard to resist. The millionaire noticed her hesitation and smiled encouragingly. "I think you'd do great," he said. "And honestly, it would be fun for everyone here. No pressure, just a little music." She took a deep breath, feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. She glanced around the room and noticed that several patrons had begun to notice the exchange, their curiosity piqued by the unusual interaction. Some watched quietly, wondering what might happen next, while others whispered to each other, intrigued by the unexpected scene unfolding before them. Finally, she nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "All right, she said softly. I'll do it. The millionaire's eyes lit up with surprise and delight. Excellent, he said, his voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. I promise you won't regret it. She made her way toward the piano, her steps careful but determined. The soft click of her shoes against the wooden floor seemed to echo through the room, drawing more attention from the patrons. The pianist at the corner had paused, leaving the piano silent, as if it were waiting for her to bring it to life. She reached the bench and sat down, taking a moment to steady her hands. Her fingers hovered over the keys, feeling the smooth, cool surface beneath her fingertips. A hush fell over the room. Conversations quieted, and all eyes turned toward her. She could feel the weight of their curiosity and anticipation, but she also felt a sense of calm wash over her. This was her moment, a chance to share something deeply personal with strangers who were now eager to witness it. She drew a slow breath, reminding herself of the hours she had spent practicing, the countless songs she had played in private, the dedication that had brought her to this point. The millionaire watched with a mix of anticipation and admiration. He had expected a simple, polite performance, perhaps a few notes played nervously. But there was something in the way she carried herself, in the quiet confidence that radiated from her, that made him wonder if this small dare would turn into something extraordinary. She pressed the first key, and the note rang out, clear and pure. It was a single note, but it carried with it a promise of what was to come. She continued, her fingers moving smoothly across the keys, each note more confident than the last. The melody she played was delicate and beautiful, capturing the attention of everyone in the room. The soft piano music filled the air, weaving through the conversations that had quieted, drawing everyone into the moment. As she played, she felt herself relax, losing herself in the music. The nervousness that had gripped her at first began to fade, replaced by a sense of joy and freedom. She realized that this was what she loved most about music, the way it could transport both the player and the listener, the way it could create a shared experience that was both intimate and universal. The millionaire leaned forward slightly, his eyes fixed on her hands as they moved gracefully over the keys. He could see the passion in her performance, the skill that had been honed over years of practice. It was more than just a dare now. It was a revelation, a glimpse into the hidden talent of someone who had been quietly amazing all along. Patrons watched in awe, their expressions shifting from curiosity to amazement. Some whispered to each other, unable to contain their excitement, while others simply sat in stunned silence, captivated by the music. The room seemed to hold its breath, every note hanging in the air, drawing everyone into the performance. For the waitress, time seemed to slow. She was fully immersed in the music, feeling every note resonate through her fingers and into the room. She realized that this small dare had become an opportunity to share a part of herself that few had ever seen. The nervousness was gone, replaced by a sense of purpose and exhilaration. As the final notes lingered in the air, the room remained quiet for a brief moment, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then, slowly, applause began to build, growing louder and louder until it filled the entire space. Patrons rose from their seats, clapping and cheering, some even whistling in admiration. The millionaire's confident smirk had transformed into a look of genuine awe, his eyes shining with respect and delight. The waitress smiled, a mixture of relief and pride washing over her. She had taken a chance, stepped out of her comfort zone, and shared something truly special. The room had gasped in anticipation, but now it celebrated her talent, recognizing the skill and courage it took to rise to the challenge. It was a moment she would never forget, a memory that would stay with her long after the restaurant had emptied and the lights had dimmed. And as the applause continued, she realized that sometimes, the simplest dares could lead to the most extraordinary experiences, reminding everyone that hidden talents often shine brightest when least expected. The moment the applause faded, the waitress rose from the piano bench, her hands still tingling from the notes she had played. Her heart was racing, a mix of relief and excitement flooding through her. She could feel the eyes of the patrons on her, some still clapping, some smiling in amazement, and a few shaking their heads in disbelief at the skill they had just witnessed. It was one thing to play alone in a small empty room, It was another to captivate a room full of strangers in an elegant restaurant, and she was still coming to terms with the reality of what had just happened. The millionaire leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his eyes bright with admiration. "That was incredible," he said sincerely. "You didn't just play the piano. You told a story with it. I didn't expect anything like that." His friends nodded in agreement, some even rising from their chairs to offer their congratulations. The energy at the table was infectious, and the room seemed to hum with excitement from the unexpected performance. For the waitress, the challenge had started as a playful dare, something lighthearted and meant to entertain. But now, seeing the reaction of the people around her, she realized it had turned into a moment of genuine connection. She had shared a part of herself that few people had ever seen, and the response was far more than she had hoped for. Her confidence swelled, and she allowed herself a small, genuine smile, feeling proud of what she had accomplished. As she moved back toward her section to continue serving, she noticed that the atmosphere in the restaurant had changed. Patrons were no longer just dining quietly. There was a buzz in the air, a sense of excitement that seemed to spread from table to table. People were whispering to each other, pointing toward the piano and the waitress who had transformed a simple evening into something extraordinary. Even the staff seemed energized, glancing at her with surprise and admiration. The performance had left an impression not only on the diners but also on everyone working there. The millionaire waved her over again, this time with a more relaxed smile. "Come here for a moment," he said. She approached cautiously, unsure of what he might want but curious nonetheless. "I have to say," he continued, "I didn't think anyone could pull off something like that on a whim. Most people would be nervous, hesitant, maybe even embarrassed. But you embraced it. That's rare." She felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. "Thank you," she said softly. "I've played for years, just mostly in private. I guess I just got caught up in the moment." He nodded knowingly. "And that's exactly what made it so special. You didn't just play notes, you played with heart. Something you can't teach. Some people go through life playing safely, afraid of stepping out of their comfort zone. You didn't. You let yourself shine." The waitress felt a mix of pride and humility at his words. She was used to compliments about her service, her efficiency, or her friendliness, but praise about her talent, especially from someone like him, felt different. It acknowledged something deeper, something personal that few had the chance to witness. She realized that this brief encounter was more than just a dare. It was a reminder of what she was capable of when she believed in herself. Meanwhile, the diners were still buzzing, their attention occasionally returning to her as she moved between tables. Some came up to her directly, offering kind words and expressing their amazement. "I didn't expect that at all," one woman said, eyes wide. "You're amazing. How long have you been playing?" The waitress smiled politely, responding modestly, "Since I was a child. I just don't usually perform in front of people." The woman's eyes sparkled with understanding. "Well, I'm glad you did tonight. You made this evening unforgettable." The waitress nodded, her heart swelling again with gratitude. The acknowledgement from strangers was a strange but wonderful feeling, one that filled her with a sense of pride and satisfaction she hadn't experienced in a long time. Back at the millionaire's table, he was still talking animatedly with his friends about the performance, clearly impressed. He gestured toward the waitress, as if to highlight her courage and skill. "That's what I love about challenges," he said, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "You never know what hidden talents you'll discover, or what unexpected joy you can bring to a room. Tonight is proof of that." The waitress moved back to her station, refilling glasses and taking orders, but she couldn't help noticing the lingering glances from patrons. Some were smiling knowingly, others whispered to their companions, clearly still talking about her performance. The energy in the restaurant had shifted from casual dining to a more lively and animated atmosphere. People were more engaged, more attentive, and somehow more connected, all because of a single act of courage and talent. As she walked past the piano again, the millionaire called out to her, a playful tone in his voice. "If you ever consider doing this professionally, you'd have an audience any time you wanted." The waitress laughed softly, shaking her head. "I think I'll stick to my day job for now," she replied, though the compliment warmed her heart. He chuckled in response, clearly enjoying her modesty. Despite the excitement, she knew she had to keep working. The restaurant still had orders to take, tables to serve, and a night to finish. But now, every step she took felt lighter, more energized. She moved with a renewed sense of purpose, aware that she had not only met a challenge but had exceeded expectations in a way that was both surprising and rewarding. Throughout the rest of the evening, she found herself thinking about the dare and the performance. The initial fear and hesitation had been replaced by a sense of accomplishment and joy. She realized that sometimes, stepping into the unknown, even for a few minutes, could create moments that people remembered for a long time. The applause, the smiles, the whispered compliments, they were all reminders that courage and talent, when combined, could make a lasting impact. As the night went on, the restaurant began to empty slowly, and the patrons who had witnessed the impromptu piano performance left with smiles on their faces. The waitress cleaned her section meticulously, reflecting on the events of the evening. She thought about the millionaire's words, about how he had recognized something special in her and how that recognition had made her feel seen in a way she rarely experienced. By the time the restaurant closed, she was exhausted but exhilarated. She had faced a challenge, embraced her hidden talent, and shared it with a room full of strangers. The experience had reminded her that life was full of unexpected opportunities, moments that could surprise and delight, moments that could reveal parts of herself she didn't always show. It was a night that would stay with her, a story she would remember whenever she doubted herself or her abilities. And as she turned off the lights, locking the doors behind her, she felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The dare that had seemed so small at first had grown into something extraordinary. It had brought joy to others, revealed hidden talent, and created a memory that would last far longer than any ordinary evening. She walked home with a smile, her mind replaying the music, the applause, and the unexpected thrill of stepping into the spotlight, knowing that sometimes the most memorable moments came when one dared to take a risk. The next day, the waitress arrived at the restaurant feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Last night's performance had left her buzzing with energy, but she also knew that something had changed. Patrons who had been there yesterday still spoke of her talent, and even among the staff there was a new level of respect. She moved through her morning routine, preparing for the day with a sense of anticipation. It was not just another shift. It felt like the start of something more significant. As the day unfolded, whispers of the previous night's piano performance spread quickly. Regular customers who came in were eager to see if she would play again, some jokingly asking if they could request a song. She smiled politely, enjoying the attention, but she also felt a hint of pressure. Last night had been spontaneous, a moment of courage and freedom. Could she live up to that again if someone dared her today? She realized that her life had shifted slightly, that a single event could change how others viewed her, and perhaps how she viewed herself. By mid-afternoon, the restaurant filled with its usual blend of lunchtime patrons. People came in with conversations about work, school, or daily errands, yet the energy was different. Some glanced toward the piano with curiosity, while others remembered the performance and exchanged knowing smiles. The waitress moved through the tables, taking orders and serving with her usual care, but she noticed that every interaction carried an added sense of warmth. Patrons seemed more relaxed, more open to conversation, perhaps because her performance had added an element of magic to the space. Around 2 o'clock, the restaurant door opened, and a man entered with a group of friends. He was well-dressed, confident, and immediately drew attention as he scanned the room. The waitress felt a flicker of recognition. It was the millionaire from last night. He had come back, and now there was a sense of curiosity mixed with expectation. She approached him carefully, offering her usual polite greeting. "Good afternoon," she said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the slight flutter of nerves. "Can I get you something to drink?" He smiled warmly, his eyes twinkling with that same playful curiosity from the night before. "I thought I'd stop by and see the talented pianist again," he said, his tone friendly but teasing. "I hope you don't mind me interrupting your shift." She laughed softly. "I don't mind at all. Please have a seat. I'll get you something right away." She noticed that his friends were already taking in the atmosphere, intrigued by the piano and by her presence. There was a quiet energy that made the air feel charged with anticipation. After bringing them their drinks, she returned to her section, though her mind lingered on the millionaire and the unspoken challenge in his presence. She had learned that he was not someone to shy away from curiosity or spontaneity, and she wondered if another playful dare might be on the horizon. Yet she felt a sense of calm. Last night had shown her that she could rise to the occasion, that she had a talent worth sharing. The thought gave her a quiet confidence. As the afternoon moved on, the restaurant continued to bustle. Some regular customers joined in conversation, recalling last night's performance with delight. Others whispered excitedly among themselves, speculating about what might happen next. The piano in the corner seemed to beckon subtly, waiting silently for the moment when it would come alive again. The waitress moved closer to it periodically, her hands brushing lightly over the keys as she adjusted the bench or cleaned the surrounding area. She could feel a familiar thrill in her fingers, the memory of last night's music returning to her like a gentle wave. Finally, around mid-afternoon, the millionaire leaned slightly forward and called out to her. His voice carried easily across the room, drawing the attention of nearby patrons. "If you're feeling up to it," he said with a grin, "I'd love to hear you play again. I think everyone here would enjoy it." There was no pressure in his words, only genuine curiosity and anticipation. The waitress paused, her heart racing at the thought. Another performance in front of a room full of people would be daunting, but she also felt a surge of excitement. She remembered how last night had felt. The thrill, the connection, the applause. This could be another chance to share her passion, to bring music into the lives of strangers who were eager to experience something special. She nodded slowly, a small smile forming on her lips. "All right," she said softly. "I'll do it." She moved toward the piano, the room gradually quieting as patrons sensed that something was about to happen. Conversations dwindled, replaced by the subtle murmur of anticipation. The millionaire leaned back slightly in his chair, watching with an approving smile. The air seemed to hum with expectancy, as though the space itself was aware that another moment of magic was about to unfold. Sitting at the piano, she placed her fingers on the keys, taking a deep breath to steady herself. The first note she played resonated clearly, a bright and confident sound that captured the attention of everyone in the room. She began to play, her fingers moving gracefully over the keys, the melody flowing effortlessly. Unlike last night, she now had the added awareness of an audience who expected something remarkable, but instead of pressure, she felt inspired. Every note carried emotion, every chord told a story, and the music seemed to weave through the air, connecting with the people listening in an unspoken way. The millionaire's friends leaned forward, their expressions a mix of surprise and admiration. Some were whispering to each other, trying to understand how someone could perform with such skill and emotion seemingly on impulse. The patrons around the room had quieted completely, all eyes fixed on the waitress and the piano. There was a palpable sense of wonder, a shared recognition that what they were witnessing was rare and beautiful. For the waitress, the music became a form of expression, a way to communicate without words. She poured her energy, her joy, and her passion into the performance. Each note was deliberate yet effortless, each melody shaped by years of practice and a deep love for music. She could feel the energy of the audience, their anticipation and admiration giving her strength and courage. She realized that her music was not just for herself. It was a gift she could share, a way to touch the lives of strangers, if only for a brief moment. As the performance continued, the millionaire watched with growing appreciation. He could see the confidence and skill she exhibited, the way she transformed a simple dare into a captivating performance. He had known she had talent, but witnessing it unfold again, with even more assurance than the first time, left him genuinely impressed. There was a sense of pride in his gaze, an acknowledgement of her bravery and the extraordinary nature of the moment. The patrons' reactions were immediate and heartfelt. Some whispered in amazement, some smiled broadly, and others simply sat in quiet awe, completely absorbed by the music. The atmosphere in the restaurant shifted from ordinary to enchanting, as though the space itself had been transformed by the performance. Conversations paused, meals were momentarily forgotten, and every person present was drawn into the shared experience, united by the beauty of the music. As the final notes rang out, the room held its breath for a moment, reluctant to break the spell. Then, gradually, applause began, soft at first, and then swelling into a thunderous ovation. Patrons rose from their seats, clapping and cheering, some even whistling in appreciation. The waitress smiled, her cheeks flushed with the exhilaration of another successful performance. She had done it again, rising to the challenge and captivating an entire room with her talent. The millionaire stood, clapping enthusiastically, his face lit with genuine admiration. "Absolutely incredible," he said, his voice carrying over the applause. "You've done it again. That was even more impressive than last night." His friends echoed his sentiment, praising her skill and bravery. The energy in the restaurant was electric, a mixture of excitement, admiration, and shared joy. After the applause settled, the waitress returned to her station, feeling a sense of quiet triumph. She had faced another challenge, embraced her talent, and shared it with a room full of people who were clearly moved by her performance. She realized that these moments, these opportunities to step outside her comfort zone and reveal her true abilities, were rare and precious. She felt grateful for the dare, for the encouragement, and for the chance to make a lasting impression on others. Throughout the rest of the afternoon, the restaurant continued with a heightened sense of energy. Patrons who had witnessed the performance lingered longer, engaged in conversations about the music, the talent, and the unexpected joy that had filled the room. The waitress moved between tables with renewed purpose, carrying herself with a quiet confidence that radiated from her. She knew that the events of the day had changed not only how others saw her, but also how she saw herself. As the shift came to an end, the millionaire approached her once more, smiling warmly. "You have a gift," he said sincerely. "It's rare to see someone share their talent so freely and so beautifully. Don't ever underestimate what you can do." The words resonated deeply with her, leaving a lasting impression. She nodded, feeling a sense of pride and fulfillment that went beyond the applause or the compliments. It was about recognition, about connection, and about the courage to embrace one's true self. Walking home that evening, she reflected on the day, the challenges, and the performances. She realized that life had a way of presenting opportunities when least expected, and that sometimes, stepping into the unknown could lead to moments of beauty and joy that stayed with you forever. The music, the applause, and the admiration had created memories that would linger in her mind, reminding her that talent and courage, when shared, could inspire not only herself but everyone around her. The following evening, the restaurant had a different energy than usual. Word of the waitress's piano performance had spread, and the restaurant was filled with a sense of expectation. Regular patrons returned, eager to see if she would perform again, while newcomers glanced curiously toward the piano, their interest piqued by stories they had heard. The waitress arrived early, preparing for her shift with a sense of calm determination. She had learned that moments like these required presence and focus, not just talent. As she moved through her morning preparations, the staff exchanged quiet smiles and nods. The event from the previous night had left everyone in awe, and her colleagues looked at her with newfound respect. It was clear that her abilities extended beyond her duties as a waitress. She had a gift that could inspire and move others. Yet she remained humble, quietly organizing the tables, refilling condiments, and setting up for the evening service. She knew that the real magic happened when she stepped away from the routine and let her talent shine. By early evening, the restaurant was bustling with activity. Patrons arrived, greeted by the familiar warmth of the lights and the soft hum of conversation. The piano sat quietly in the corner, waiting, as though aware that it would soon come alive again. The waitress moved through the dining room, attending to tables with her usual grace and attentiveness. She noticed the curious glances from patrons who had heard about her performance, some even asking if they might be lucky enough to hear her play again. She smiled politely, appreciating their enthusiasm, but remained focused on her work. Tonight, she knew, she would need to balance her duties with the anticipation that lingered in the air. The millionaire entered the restaurant, accompanied by a small group of friends. He had returned once again, his presence both familiar and intriguing. As he spotted her, he gave a friendly wave, and she approached his table, offering a polite greeting. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves she felt. "Can I get you something to drink?" He smiled warmly, a glint of amusement in his eyes. "I thought I'd see the pianist again," he said, his tone light but filled with genuine curiosity. "I hope I'm not interrupting your shift." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "Not at all. Please have a seat. I'll bring your drinks right away." As she moved away, she could sense the anticipation building in the room. Patrons had noticed his return, and the atmosphere seemed charged with excitement. The piano, quiet and waiting, seemed to invite her to step forward, to transform the ordinary evening into something extraordinary once more. After delivering drinks and attending to a few tables, she felt the familiar pull of the piano. The millionaire leaned slightly forward and spoke, his voice carrying just enough for her to hear. "If you're feeling up to it, I'd love to hear another performance. I think everyone here would enjoy it." There was no pressure in his words, only encouragement and curiosity. The waitress took a deep breath, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. Another performance meant stepping into the spotlight once more, facing the expectations of both regular patrons and newcomers alike. Yet she also felt a surge of confidence. The experiences of the previous nights had shown her that she could rise to the occasion, that she could turn a playful dare into a moment of connection and beauty. She nodded slowly, a small, determined smile forming on her lips. "All right," she said softly. "I'll do it." As she approached the piano, conversations in the room began to quiet, and the focus of the diners turned toward her. Patrons shifted in their seats, some leaning forward with curiosity, others exchanging whispers of excitement. The air seemed to hold its breath, anticipating the moment when the keys would come alive under her fingers. She settled onto the bench, feeling the familiar coolness of the keys beneath her hands. Her fingers hovered briefly, recalling the melodies that had brought her this far, and then she began to play. The first notes rang out, clear and precise, cutting through the soft hum of the restaurant. Her hands moved gracefully, guided by years of practice and a deep passion for music. The melody flowed naturally, each note connecting seamlessly to the next. Unlike previous nights, she was now aware of the growing audience and their expectations. Yet she allowed herself to be fully present in the music, letting it carry her beyond nervous thoughts. The millionaire and his friends watched with rapt attention, clearly impressed by the skill and emotion in her performance. Patrons around the room fell silent, captivated by the music that seemed to fill every corner of the space. The restaurant felt transformed, as though the walls themselves had absorbed the energy of the performance and reflected it back, amplifying the experience for everyone present. Each note was imbued with emotion, telling a story without words, drawing the listeners into a shared moment of wonder and awe. For the waitress, the music was both an escape and a connection. She felt every chord, every melody resonate through her fingers and into the room. The nervousness that had accompanied her initial performances had faded, replaced by a sense of freedom and purpose. She realized that this was more than just a skill or a talent. It was a way to communicate with others, to create a bond that transcended conversation or appearance. Each note was a bridge, linking her passion to the hearts of everyone listening. The audience's reactions were immediate and heartfelt. Some whispered in amazement, their eyes wide with wonder. Others smiled broadly, lost in the beauty of the performance. A few simply sat quietly, letting the music wash over them, their expressions reflecting awe and appreciation. The energy in the room was electric, a combination of admiration, curiosity, and the joy of witnessing something extraordinary unfold in an everyday setting. The millionaire's admiration grew with each passing moment. He had seen talent before, but this was different. There was an authenticity in her performance, a blend of skill, emotion, and courage that made it unforgettable. He could see how she transformed the simple act of playing a piano into a shared experience that touched everyone present. The way she commanded the room, while remaining humble and focused, left him genuinely impressed. As the performance reached its climax, the music became more intricate and layered, each note carefully chosen to convey emotion and depth. The waitress lost herself in the flow of the melody, completely immersed in the moment. She felt the energy of the audience responding to her music, their anticipation and admiration fueling her performance. It was a rare and beautiful connection, a moment that transcended the ordinary and became something extraordinary. When the final notes echoed through the restaurant, a hush fell over the room. Patrons lingered in their seats for a moment, reluctant to break the spell. Then, slowly, applause began to rise, soft at first, and then building into a crescendo of clapping, cheers, and whistles. The room erupted in appreciation, celebrating not just her talent, but the courage and authenticity she had displayed. The millionaire rose from his chair, clapping enthusiastically, his face illuminated with genuine admiration. "Absolutely stunning," he said, his voice carrying over the applause. "You've done it again. That was even more incredible than I could have imagined." His friends nodded in agreement, offering their own praise. The audience around the room joined in, their energy and excitement filling the space with warmth and joy. After the applause subsided, the waitress returned to her station, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had embraced another challenge, shared her talent, and created a moment that would be remembered by all who witnessed it. She understood that these opportunities were rare, moments that required courage and a willingness to step beyond the familiar. She felt grateful for the dare, the encouragement, and the chance to transform an ordinary evening into something extraordinary. Throughout the rest of the evening, the restaurant maintained a heightened energy. Patrons who had witnessed the performance lingered longer, discussing the music and sharing their admiration. The waitress moved through her duties with renewed confidence, aware that her talent had made a meaningful impact. She smiled quietly to herself, feeling proud but still grounded, knowing that the true reward was not the applause, but the connection she had created with others through her music. As the night drew to a close, the millionaire approached her one last time, offering a warm and sincere compliment. "You have a gift that touches people in ways words cannot," he said. "Never doubt what you can do." The words resonated deeply, leaving a lasting impression on her. She nodded, acknowledging his praise with humility and gratitude, feeling the weight of the moment and the significance of what she had accomplished. Walking home that evening, she reflected on the events of the day and the performances she had given. She understood that life had a way of presenting opportunities that could surprise and challenge, moments that required courage and trust in oneself. The music, the applause, and the admiration had created memories that would stay with her, reminders of the power of talent, passion, and bravery. She smiled, knowing that stepping into the unknown could lead to experiences that transformed not only her own perspective, but the lives of those who witnessed it. The following morning, the waitress arrived at the restaurant with a quiet sense of anticipation. The previous nights had changed something in her life, and even the thought of stepping into the restaurant filled her with a mixture of excitement and responsibility. She knew that people would be talking about her performances, and some patrons might even be hoping to hear her play again. It was no longer just a part of her job. It had become something bigger, a connection to those around her through music. As she prepared for the day, she felt a deep sense of calm. She set up the tables, polished the surfaces, and arranged the cutlery with her usual care. But beneath these ordinary tasks, there was a quiet energy flowing through her. She knew that tonight, like the previous evenings, could bring another chance to share her talent, another opportunity to create a moment that people would remember. The piano in the corner seemed to call to her, its presence a gentle reminder of the magic that could unfold with courage and dedication. Patrons began arriving for the lunch service, and the restaurant quickly filled with its usual mix of regulars and newcomers. Conversations floated across the room, laughter punctuating the air. But there was a noticeable sense of curiosity in the atmosphere. People glanced toward the piano more often than usual, whispering to one another about the waitress who had captivated the room on multiple occasions. Some seemed eager to see if she would perform again, while others simply carried the stories they had heard as a source of quiet fascination. Throughout the day, she moved between tables, attending to patrons with the grace and attentiveness that had always been her hallmark. Yet she couldn't help but notice the glances of anticipation from diners who remembered her performances. Each time she walked past the piano, she felt a familiar thrill, a gentle tug at her curiosity and her love for music. She knew that moments like these were rare, and she felt grateful for the chance to touch the lives of others, even briefly, through her talent. As the evening approached, the restaurant grew busier, the air filled with the scent of dinner dishes and the low murmur of conversation. The millionaire returned once again, accompanied by a few friends. His presence was a steady, encouraging force, a reminder of the playful dare that had started it all. He gave her a warm nod as she approached his table, and she responded with a polite smile, feeling a mix of familiarity and excitement. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady yet warm. "Can I get you something to drink?" He returned her smile with one of his own, full of genuine appreciation. "I thought I'd see the pianist again," he said, his tone light and encouraging. "I hope I'm not causing any trouble." "Not at all," she replied softly, bringing him and his friends their drinks. She felt a quiet sense of anticipation building in the room. Patrons had noticed his arrival, and the atmosphere carried an energy of expectation, the sense that something extraordinary was about to happen once more. After completing a few table orders, she felt the familiar pull of the piano. The millionaire leaned slightly forward, his expression gentle and encouraging. "If you're up for it, I'd love to hear you play again," he said. "I think everyone here would enjoy it." The waitress paused, taking a deep breath. Another performance meant stepping into the spotlight, facing the expectations of both regulars and newcomers. Yet she felt ready. The previous nights had taught her that her talent, when shared, could inspire and connect people. She nodded, her small smile firm and confident. "All right," she said. "I'll play." The restaurant gradually quieted as patrons sensed that something remarkable was about to occur. Conversations dimmed, and all eyes turned toward the piano. She walked to the instrument, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. Sitting on the bench, she placed her fingers on the keys, feeling the familiar coolness beneath them. She closed her eyes briefly, centering herself, and then began to play. The first notes filled the room, clear and resonant. Her fingers moved gracefully, guided by years of practice and a deep passion for music. The melody flowed naturally, delicate yet powerful, each note connecting seamlessly to the next. Unlike before, she was fully aware of the audience's gaze. Yet she let the music carry her beyond any self-doubt. She felt a profound sense of purpose in the performance, knowing that each note she played was not just a sound, but a bridge to the hearts of those listening. The millionaire and his friends watched with awe, clearly impressed by her skill and emotion. Patrons around the room fell silent, captivated by the music. The atmosphere transformed from ordinary dining into a shared experience, the air thick with anticipation and admiration. Every note seemed to carry the energy of her courage and passion, touching everyone in the room in a way that words could not. For the waitress, the music was a conduit of expression. She felt every chord resonate through her, each melody weaving a story of courage, joy, and connection. The nervousness that had accompanied her initial performances had long since melted away, replaced by a sense of liberation and fulfillment. She realized that this was her gift, to bring people together through the language of music, to transform ordinary moments into unforgettable experiences. The audience's reactions were immediate and heartfelt. Some whispered in amazement, eyes wide, while others smiled broadly, lost in the beauty of the performance. A few sat quietly, letting the music wash over them, their expressions reflecting awe and gratitude. The room seemed to hum with energy, a shared recognition of the extraordinary unfolding before them. Every note carried emotion, every pause held significance, and every melody created a connection between performer and listener. The millionaire's admiration deepened with each passing moment. He had expected talent, but what he witnessed was more profound. A combination of skill, bravery, and authenticity that created an unforgettable moment. He observed how she transformed the piano into a storytelling instrument, how she captured the attention and hearts of everyone in the room. It was a rare display of natural talent and courage, and he could not help but be genuinely moved. As the performance reached its climax, the music became more intricate and expressive, each note chosen to convey depth and emotion. The waitress felt herself fully immersed in the flow of the melody, the connection between her and the audience palpable. She could feel the energy of the room responding to her music, their anticipation and admiration amplifying her performance. It was a beautiful, shared experience, a moment that transcended the ordinary and became something unforgettable. When the final notes resonated through the restaurant, a hush fell over the room, as if everyone wished to preserve the magic of the moment just a little longer. Slowly, the applause began, soft at first and then growing louder, culminating in a chorus of clapping, cheering, and whistles. Patrons rose from their seats, celebrating not just her talent, but her courage and the authenticity she brought to the performance. The millionaire stood, clapping enthusiastically, his face illuminated with admiration. "Absolutely remarkable," he said, his voice carrying over the applause. "You've created magic again. That was beyond what I expected." His friends nodded in agreement, offering their own words of praise. The energy in the room was electric, a shared celebration of talent and bravery. After the applause subsided, the waitress returned to her station, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. She had embraced another challenge, shared her talent, and created a moment that would remain with everyone who witnessed it. She understood that such opportunities were rare, moments that required courage, passion, and a willingness to step beyond the familiar. She felt gratitude for the dare, for the encouragement, and for the chance to impact others' lives through her music. Throughout the evening, the restaurant maintained an elevated energy. Patrons lingered longer, sharing their admiration and excitement, while the waitress moved through her duties with renewed confidence and poise. She felt proud but grounded, aware that the true reward was not applause alone, but the connections she had made and the joy she had shared. As the night drew to a close, the millionaire approached her one final time, offering a heartfelt compliment. "You have a gift that touches people deeply," he said sincerely. "Never doubt what you can do." The words resonated within her, leaving a lasting impression. She nodded in acknowledgement, humbled and grateful, knowing the significance of the moment. Walking home that night, she reflected on the journey of the past few days, the dares, the performances, the music, and the reactions. She realized that life often presents unexpected opportunities, moments that challenge us to step out of comfort zones and share our true selves. The music, the applause, and the admiration had created memories that would stay with her. Reminders that talent, passion, and courage could inspire not just herself, but everyone around her. She smiled softly, knowing that these experiences had transformed ordinary evenings into extraordinary moments, leaving her with a sense of fulfillment and the knowledge that the smallest dare could create the biggest impact.